My name is Samuel Sander, and I'm artist based mainly in painting and installation work. I think my history is coming from drawing, as I did, as a kid. Maybe a bit more like cartoony kind of drawings, but at least I had lots of fun doing it. So then, going to high school, you got to kind of choose a path, and I chose to have some kind of emphasis towards media and mainly graphic design, which I really, I had my focus on becoming a graphic designer. It felt nice, good. But then after high school, I had a sort of break from any type of creativity. I was traveling and doing other things, working part-time in like clothing stores and whatever. So after a few years of just doing random things, I felt something was missing. So and that part that was missing, I sort of felt, okay, it's probably that connection with creating things. So I then applied for a foundational art training school, which was mainly painting and drawing and printmaking. And that was kind of like the first time that I experienced being in a more of a fine art setting. And to me it was actually a whole lot more fun doing that, a bit more messy than sitting in front of a computer, and just it felt a bit more alive. And also I guess the whole social context of having very bohemian types of friends and a bit a different social context that I felt maybe a bit more at home. So I continued to applied for a second foundational art school that just had one focus, and that was like painting, and just continued on doing it, and got swept away when everyone in my class was applying for the art academy. That was also something that I was a bit unsure that I would have the level of skills that you needed to have to get accepted into the academy, but I felt like, okay, I should at least try, otherwise I might regret or whatever. And to my shock and surprise, I got accepted into the academy.
What academy was it?
The Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Stockholm. So I got accepted for a 5-year straight-on master's program with no particular focus. Like in Sweden, it's called like free arts. So basically, we can do whatever. Yeah. But we had one professor each that sort of like was our mentor, and my professor was very much into painting. So I think I kind of stuck to a bit of exploration the first years, but then eventually came back to steady myself more in the tradition of painting, and going a bit from abstract to more realistic kind of painting. Yeah. After the graduation from the academy, I spent started to have shared a studio space, and had a few group exhibitions with some by invitations from different museums and institutions, but some of them were also more like organized. Me and some friends, like coming together for conversations and having similar interests, so feeling like there's a connection to do something together. So I've been doing some what do you say, like shared installations, like larger installations where we've been 5 artists doing like one quite big piece together, which we call like the Storm Castle, kind of dramatic, because it was a very dramatic. We kind of built a huge sort of like castle where we had lots of arts, like videos, paintings, different kind of lightings and stuff, sculptures that moved around. So it was very like stormy. So I always had maybe the sense of like when you graduated, you came from a very social context, like a school setting where a lot of students, and having these conversations going on in the cafeteria, and a lot of interaction. And then once graduated, I had a studio space, which we were maybe like five artists that rented space there, but all of us had part-time jobs, so different times and so on. So it could be like I was there a whole day without anyone showing up, So coming from a very social context, then to a very kind of lonesome situation didn't really fit me at all, because I really like to have people around me, and to feel that you're not alone, that you're doing something together. So that has always been some kind of ambition to do things together, which then came upon this a friend of mine called Victor. It was actually him who had already started a magazine called Crea, and so Victor and a guy called David, they came and asked me if they could do, if I could contribute pieces to the magazine, and if they could do an interview with me. And of course I said yes, and I was very excited, and perhaps I got a bit too engaged in the whole process of how the outcome of the magazine would be. So they invited me to become part of the editorial staff, which that was in the 3rd issue, so they had done 2 before I joined. And none of them that started Crea magazine worked with fine arts. Like Victor was more into graphic design, and David was a musician, but a very strong visionary. And then also like my friend Nils, who works with texts and writing, he had also come along the journey. So they hadn't really anyone working, specifically with fine arts or with contemporary arts. So I felt like I had really something to contribute. So Crea magazine is based on our shared Christian faith worldview, and having to acknowledge that there's and believing there's a God that loves us and has done all these amazing things, created everything. So it's kind of like a response towards that love. So we have that in our logo, statement that says "for the love of God," which is, for the sake of God's love, but also, being in love with God, and sort of connecting that with creating art. Like art comes from a response. We are created and in His image, and we create in response to that. Yeah.
How is that received within the context of the artwork, that value?
We've had, for most part, a good response. Because I think when they see the quality of the magazine and that we're really sincere and professional, and we try to keep a really high level, integrity as term of, how the art and the magazine. But we've had some artists that didn't want to be part of the magazine. Once they've seen the magazine, and it's like, yeah, this looks beautiful, and it's a good magazine, but I'm not sure that I could be a part of it because of the fact that I don't share in that kind of worldview or ambition, or that they can feel secure with having their works being published in that given context. Yeah. So it's a bit of both, I guess. Yeah.
What was your, just out of interest, what was your own response to that? Was that an issue for you, even if it's an issue for them, or?
No, not really. I mean, I could respect that. Everyone should be feeling, secure and decisive in how they want to present their works in relation to different settings. So I could understand it. It's not really, a strange thing. It's a bit shame because it was a really good artist, So we would love to have. This was a photographer from Mexico. Fantastic work. But so that's a shame. But.
So how do you envisage Cray as a magazine? Do you envisage it as like a curated gathering type of space?
Yeah. I think that's how sort of initially it started. When it started, it was first of all it was more called like a fanzine, create a fanzine. So inviting people to just present their works. We had a theme also, like every issue had. So the first issue that we put out was called like Miracles, and so everyone sort of, I either did a piece for the magazine or had pieces that fitted within sort of that context, and then the next issue was like we had was called Norway, so giving us freedom to actually we could do everything, and we could fit everything in relation to art and also faith, because we don't see it's a separation between Norway could be as spiritual as doing a issue on miracles, so you could connect everything to that source, the same source. But like when I started coming along, I think we started actually treating the magazine more and more as an art work within itself, like having a more of a conceptual framework and how we wanted to construct a narrative in every magazine. So then it became even more important to also which artists we invited and what kind of pieces they did for the magazine. So a bit more curatorial. So when being invited to exhibit with the Nomas Project, I sort of felt that there was a connection between a project that I was already investigating and doing, which I had received like a travel grant for a project that I called The Mountain and I, which dealt with a lot of the tradition, maybe mainly like the painterly tradition of artists going out in mountain scenes to like paint landscape, and also some more so contemporary traditions on like photographers. Like one would be maybe Ansel Adams that I mentioned in this application. He's an American photographer, or at least he was out in Yosemite Valley and taking lots of really strong photos. So that was like one part of the project, was just like me having some kind of longing or interest in going out into nature, because it felt that some of the painters that I looked at that went out, they had also found nature to be some connected to some kind of like spirituality. So for them it was a connection between creation and nature, and so they went out to find inspiration to just be in that scene. So that was what I had also imagined for myself, just going out there, documenting and having inspiration. But then also I had in my studio started to have thoughts on another project, would be more of maybe a personal project that will like my identity and my searching to sort of like find myself as a person or an artist, and those two projects sort of like came into to coexist and to become maybe like one project. And initially, like the kick-off, what started them, or what kind of made me join them, was when my dad called me at one moment and asked, "Hey, do you want to come on a hike with me in the northern part of Sweden, together with my cousin and his dad?" So it's like a kind of a father-son hike. And so I already had received some money, on this travel grant. So I felt, oh yeah, this is a good first step in this project, to go up into the mountains and just spend some time there. I also like to spend some time there with my dad, and to ask questions, to have conversations that maybe dealt with his background, his history, my history, and how it has kind of shaped us. So the whole project would be then the search for identity, but set in this kind of mountain nature scene, and but also like the conversations tends to open up to other places, and also it kind of jumps in time. So when we talk about our mutual history, we go from maybe like a place that's 20 years back and set in a whole nother country, and we talk about how it is now, family life in Stockholm or whatever, like what I'm doing in my studio, and there's lots of different conversation topics that kind of fragmentize the scene, sort of like you kind of stray off from the mountains to go visit other places, but like more on a mental kind of level. So I wanted to have that, you know, sense that it's an ongoing conversation between people, and so you have places. So then, yeah, one place that I had sort of like mentioned with this project was to go travel here to northern England and Scotland to, yeah, just to be here, to hike here. And so when I got the invitation to exhibit, I felt like, wow, this is a really good connection between this project that I'm already doing. So I already then started to think of these places, you know, that I would want to visit once in Scotland. So I started to doing, you know, experimental prints and paintings and drawings based on these places, but that I haven't really visited. So hence the title of the exhibition. Yeah.
Which is?
Places. I forgot now what O translated into. Skisser från platser jag aldrig besökt än. So it's kind of translated into sketches from places unvisited. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. Yeah.